this refugee resettlement, Cubans, Haitians, but let me just focus on the Cuban one because I know that one well. So if you come from Cuba, you are presumed to be fleeing political persecution. So you automatically are eligible for refugee cash, you're eligible for food stamps, you're eligible for Medicaid. Others who immigrate to this country have to wait 5 years for those and don't get the refugee cash. But within a year, depending if you're paroled, you can apply for a green card. And then you can travel back to Cuba as often as you want, multiple times. You can take cash. You can buy stuff with the food stamps. I've seen it. Okay, this is not, I didn't read this in a magazine. I've seen it. They use the food stamps, they fill up these bags, and they take it back to Cuba over there, or they just transfer cash back. Some people go back to Cuba for 3 months at a time. They've been here a year. How, if you are fleeing persecution, how can it be that a year later you are spending summers in Cuba? How can it be that less than a year later you're traveling back 6, 8 times a year to Cuba? I've never heard of people fleeing persecution going back to a place repeatedly. There's an issue here, is there not?
Senator, you respectfully allow me to say that you've misdescribed the Cuban Adjustment Act and what happens when an individual from Cuba arrives in the United States, because we do.
So let's talk about this real quick. So he did misrepresent the Cuban Adjustment Act, but the truth is, Cubans get a lot of benefits other immigrants don't. And I've always thought that's unfair. I get it. It's all anti-communist propaganda. And, part of it is to, try to create divisions on the island and, prove that, Cuba's not what it is. But at the end of the day, man, let's think about it, okay? Cubans aren't persecuted any more than people are persecuted here, right? They talk about political prisoners, 1,000 of them got arrested at the July 11th protests. During the Black Lives Matter protests here during the summer of 2020, we had 14,000 people arrested on felonies. A lot of those people still have cases pending. Some of those people are sitting in jail. So, it doesn't really balance out. Then, you want to talk about how people like us, anybody who's speaking up for Palestine, is being treated, being called anti-Semitic. Some people have been arrested protesting, various different places. There's not really much persecution there. You can't say it's persecution there and not persecution here, right? So, everybody wants to say Cuba's a dictatorship, things like that. I've already made this point. It's really not. Their elections are just as free, if not freer than ours, because you can't put money into elections. There's no politics. You post your resume, your skills, your positions on things, and people in your community elect you to their, country's legislative body, right? So, when they voted, for example, they voted for gay rights, gay marriage, trans rights, and things like that. The elective body in Cuba was divided, but the vast majority of people voted for it. So now there's gay rights, there's trans rights, there's all kinds of things, right? When Diaz-Canel ran for president this last time, there was 4 different candidates. Of course, everybody knew Diaz-Canel was going to win. Yeah, Raul Castro has a little bit of a hand in that, but come on now. You can't say that, our country doesn't have those things either, right? We have corporate money and corporations and lobbies like AIPAC who pick and choose the 2 candidates we have, and the 2 candidates aren't all that much different. Everybody wants to say Cuba has a one-party system, socialist party, communist party. Well, you're using an economic system to describe their party, right? So if you come to the U.S. and you look at our elective system, it's a capitalist system, right? Only one type of economic, system is allowed. So, what's the difference? You have a Democrat and a Republican party, right? You can't say, you have right-wing, left-wing. You can't say that Cuba doesn't have right-wing, left-wing. They have far-right people that are racist as hell, that have racist flags like our Confederates and racists do here. You have, right-wing conservative type of Cubans. You have left-wing socialist type of Cubans. You have liberal Cubans. The communism is an economic system. Socialism is an economic system. Just like capitalism is an economic system. You can't be communist in this country and run for office. It's illegal to be an immigrant and get citizenship in this country if you're a communist. So I've done stories this, trying to compare the election system in Cuba to ours to see which one's better. And in all reality, they're basically the same. Plain and simple. It is what it is. Cubans come and go. They abuse the whole Cuban Adjustment Act, because if they can claim persecution, they can claim these, they can point to people being arrested and things being done in Cuba and say, look, I'm being persecuted. But thousands of Cubans get denied every year because they don't fit the bill of what persecution is according to the United States. And they don't lie. And when you don't lie, they send your ass right back. So, I mean, that's what it boils down to. They aren't persecuted, but they come over here, and obviously you're going to take advantage of the situation, especially when the economy is what it is. And the economy in Cuba is what it is because of the unilateral sanctions by the United States. I've said it before and I say it again. 5 pounds of chicken per person per month isn't enough to sustain an entire population of 11 million people. When Obama was in office, he relieved some sanctions and the economy started blowing up. And then next thing you know, Trump comes into office, puts in 400 or 500 more sanctions, puts them on the list of terror, state sponsors of terror, which they're not. And that's what one of the things Rubio's trying to do here. He's trying to conflate Cubans with terrorism, and it's not there. I've proven that again over and over. So yeah, the economic situation is dire in Cuba, and that's our fault. If you relieve the sanctions, you'll have less Cubans coming. Just like you relieve the sanctions in Venezuela, you're going to have less Venezuelans coming. As soon as you better the economy in those countries, you'll have fewer migrants coming to the border. So if you want to solve the problem, the migrant crisis, lift the sanctions already. 60, 70 years, it's just nothing changed. Nothing's ever going to change. You're not going to, unless they do what they're doing in Palestine right now, which is what I suspect is going to come soon. They're going to try to forcibly overthrow the government with military operations, terrorist attacks. I mean, it's already an occupied island, right, because of Guantanamo Bay. So how many more steps do we have before it becomes Palestine? That's where we are right now. Marco Rubio is right. They do sometimes abuse it, but that's out of necessity. Of course you're going to send money. Of course you're going to send food to an economy where people are suffering because of this country. Why wouldn't you?